I cannot believe these words even have to come out of my mouth. But Sixers fans, you may have truly lost it. There's been a lot of talking points on Twitter lately about a particular homecoming, a guy these Sixers should have zero interest in, and that being Ben Simmons himself. And no, I am not making this up. I wish I was. This feels like something that started as a meme, started as, a joke, and all of a sudden people are latching onto it. That we have comments like from Victor Williams of the Liberty Line saying, I was kidding when I mentioned this before, but now I'm not. Bring back Ben Simmons. And this quote tweeting the tweet from Mike O'Connor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez, who says, PJ, Oubre, and Gordon are all absolutely horrendous passers. Losing Batum makes the concern level on that even bigger. Need somebody in between Maxey and Embiid who can make basic connective passing reads. But it is not just Victor Williams. We got this tweet from Jacob Moreno saying the Sixers re-signed Markelle Fultz for cheap, and the Nets buy out Ben Simmons, allowing Philly to bring him back on a minimum, with a little Kendrick Lamar picture there. And Jacob Moreno, who runs Sixers Country on Instagram there, as well as works for the Liberty Line. We also have from Kyle Pagan of Crossing Broad, who quote tweeted a 2013 quote from Ben Simmons saying, I'll always have love for Philly. People always ask me, I'm like, if you were to get traded anywhere again, where would you want it to be? I always say, just Philly. Philly is a second home to me, and in time, you learn and grow. And Kyle Pagan quote tweets that saying, I believe in second chances. Well, Kyle, as much as I love you, Kyle, and your content and everything, I disagree completely. That there's no world in which bringing Ben Simmons back to the Sixers team works out for anybody involved. For Ben Simmons as an individual, as a human being, as a basketball, or the Sixers as a basketball team. But let's, for food for thought, go through with the experiment. That I do hear the logic, that I do think this team does need a passer. I'm very much of the camp that I want a true point guard being brought to this Sixers team. That I think when you objectively lay things out, and while the initial tweet from Mike O'Connor making the point about Kelly Oubre and Eric Gordon, I think those are totally fair, that neither one of those guys are capable of running an offense or being a playmaker there. But even if you look at the bigger picture of this Sixers team, that with Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid, all guys are very gifted scorers. None of them are particularly elite as a playmaker. And yes, we saw a significant leap being made by both Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid last year. That should not be discounted. I do think there is a player that could be added to that mix, a true point guard to set the table for the offense, but that player is not Ben Simmons. Now, for food for thought, let's take a look at what has happened to the Ben Simmons since he has left Philadelphia. And I'm going to circle back for that process of how exactly he left Philadelphia, but to take a peek at what he produced on the floor this year. 6.1 points, 7.9 rebounds, 5.7 assists, 1.8 turnovers, shot 58.1% from the field. No number next to the three-point percentage. I wonder why that is there. But 58.1% of his twos are assisted. His defensive box plus minus is 2.9. That's actually a pretty good number there. A VORP of 0.4. He is 6'10". He's about to turn 28 years old. So, doesn't look too bad there. But you know what? Let's take a look at a little bit of the wider scale. Let's take a peek at these full stats. See how often he was on the floor on all those sorts of conversations. So we're looking at his stats here. Since he left Philadelphia in 2020 to 2021, that he did not play the entire 21-22 season, holding out due to the back injury / mental fatigue / whatever other reason it felt like on that daily basis. Then ultimately he is traded to Brooklyn. Played 42 games in the 22-23 season. Played 15 games this year. So since 2020, 2021, since that season, in which that case he was 12th in MVP voting, an all-star, second in Defensive Player of the Year there, he has played a grand total of 57 NBA games. Yeah, that's the guy that's fixing the Sixers team. And now for the full reference here, that is not even the pit of Ben Simmons as a player. And to give the full acknowledgement there, once again, those stats, during his time with Brooklyn, in those 57 games that he has played, 6.7 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, 6.0 assists per game. And I wonder what those free throw numbers were, because I think that was a little bit of a thing when he was, falling out in Philadelphia. And oh, look at that, 43.1% from the free throw line during his time in a Nets jersey. But you know what? It does get worse than that, because you want to flash back and think about this Ben Simmons situation truly falling apart in Philadelphia. Let's not forget about those hack-a-Ben moments in the playoffs where the Atlanta Hawks were just having him melt down mentally on the floor by sending him the free throw line time after time. And you know what he shot during that playoff stretch? 34.2% from the charity stripe there. You straight up cannot win basketball games when that is the case. Now, can you point to a guy like Doc Rivers and say you should just pull him off the floor for stretches? That's absolutely a fair critique there, and that's something. But the bottom line is these are challenges that Ben Simmons has not overcome. That just take a look at this career trajectory here. We're talking about a guy who won Rookie of the Year in his first season in the NBA, a 15.8 points per game scorer, 8.1 rebounds, 8.2 assists per game. Climbed was an all-star the next year. the All-Star as well in that final season to 2020 to 2021. You did see the numbers start to dip a little bit, going down to 14.3 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, 6.9 assists. He did lead the league in steals the year prior, and it was all downhill from here. So do you believe Ben Simmons is the type of reclamation project that coming to Philadelphia will cure all this? And for the record, let's not brush over that this is how this guy left Philadelphia. That to take a look at this contract, which, by the way, is still attached to him, that you're going to still have to eat this type of money. We're talking about him being due $40 million this year. Do you want to pay $40 million for a dude who straight up played 15 basketball games last year? And this is not a situation in which I'm going to have the type of sympathy. This is not a Joel Embiid situation, a Kawhi Leonard type situation where it feels like the body is failing him. While I'm not doubting the legitimacy of Ben Simmons' injuries, I am doubting like the sincerity of the level that he wants to get back on the floor. This does not feel and has never felt with him for a guy who eats, sleeps, and breathes basketball. And those are the type of guys that these Sixers should be looking for. You can feel how you feel about Paul George. He doesn't have the cleanest bill of health either. But if you're taking a gamble for which guy is going to play more basketball games next year, the line would be set very significantly in Paul George's favor for those talking points there. Now, in this mystery world that Jacob Moreno lays out, saying the Sixers re-sign Markelle Fultz for cheap. We're going to ignore that one for the sake of this video, which I could be a little bit more talked into than Ben Simmons one, but still not something that's high on my list. He also writes the Nets buy out Ben Simmons along with allowing Philadelphia to bring him back on a minimum. Ben Simmons on a minimum contract comes with a lot more baggage than just about any other player on a minimum contract. Now, for food for thought, is there a chance where this could work from a basketball reason? Do you want to squint and look at it and say, he doesn't need to shoot, he can just do the other stuff? Well, he tried that in Brooklyn. Let's not forget he was playing with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. That was the opportunity that was presented to him, and it still failed. That he couldn't find ways to stick on the floor. That in reality, we remember what it was like to play 4-on-5 on offense and how impossible it was to win. While Ben Simmons, I do think some people look at it too negatively and forget about the good times that there were, that he did prove himself to be a legitimate all-star, a rookie-of-the-year caliber player. And I think it particularly hits home after the Celtics got over this championship hump. That you see the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown who worked together, continued getting better, improving. They tried different combinations around them, and then they got over that edge. That was supposed to be Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. But one guy held up his end of the bargain, and one guy didn't. And there's a reason that we're talking about Joel Embiid as a former MVP, a current top 5 player in the NBA. And the biggest talking point with Ben Simmons is probably what Kardashian he's dating or what Call of Duty game he's into these days, because that is more the storyline than what he's producing on the basketball floor. So, guys, I appreciate the creativity. I understand the nostalgia. But if you want to run through the failed amount of players that have come through this Sixers organization, you can hit me with Jimmy Butler. You can hit me with the James Harden return more than you can hit me with a Ben Simmons return. And there's plenty of other names. You want to scratch that nostalgia itch? Bring back Dario Saric. I'm completely cool with that. Robert Covington, come back for another season. Why not? But Ben Simmons, miss me with that one. And even with the comments like from Joel Embiid, calling him that's the one that got away. Do we think Joel Embiid meant that? Because that is not the relationship I remember between the two of them during their time here. There was some legitimate beef between the two, and not in a way in which they couldn't stand each other. Just they weren't tight. That they were guys that ran in different lanes, had different goals, and ultimately that's a large reason why we're having this current conversation. So while I appreciate the creativity to all Sixers faithful out there, I just don't see a world where this works out under any circumstances. That there is no reclamation project. There is no Ben Simmons turning his career around. The reality is this is a guy who had everything handed to him, had the smooth sailing into the NBA, and ultimately we're seeing the results of that. That there is something important about this up here, being built for it in a way where you have to be hungry. You have to want it. You have to be willing to work. I don't think Ben Simmons scratches those. That's just the reality of the situation, and I don't think bringing in this guy back to Philadelphia where things blew up so wildly in the first place is going to be good for anybody in this situation. So once again, I love the creativity. I do think there are moves that need to be made on the Sixers roster, but I think investing anywhere close to $40 million on that contract of Ben Simmons is so far out of bounds. And even if it is the hypothetical buyout situation, we're talking about that means the Nets want to pay this man a sum of money so he cannot play for them. Let's think about that a little bit as well. So to Ben Simmons, I don't wish you ill at this point. It is water under the bridge that ultimately we can look back and you helped create this track for the franchise. If there was no Ben Simmons holdout, there was no James Harden trade. If there was no James Harden trade, there's no additional draft picks and a max contract slot where we can bring in Paul George. So we can remember you fondly in that light. But from a basketball perspective, this is the end of the road, and it has been for quite some time. So Ben Simmons, good luck on Twitch, my brother. Good luck streaming whatever video game you're into. Good luck with whatever socialite you want to get in the news with and be dating or whatever. But it's the end of the road for the basketball career, at least in Philadelphia. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a couple other teams who feel the exact same way right there. So you guys can fight with me in the comments if you disagree with me, if you would be willing to take a flyer on Ben Simmons and attempt to have him have his comeback career. I straight up have zero interest in it and would set the line that I'm not even offering this guy a minimum deal. I want no part of Ben Simmons on this franchise. We tried that. It did not work. And there's even more evidence why it will not work at this point in his career. But appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching this video here. Make sure you smash that subscribe button to keep the Digest family growing if you have not already. Drop a like to let me know you're listening and any comments you have below. Appreciate each and every one of you guys and talk with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.